Hello, I'm Matt Murphy, the Public Works Director for the City of Algoma, and a couple topics for the month of December coming into January. The Public Works Committee met December 21st at 8:30 a.m. here down at City Hall, and a couple things that were discussed is the final completion is now done on 6th Street from Jefferson to Fremont Street. That has all been complete, and we're just putting together the last of the final bills for that. Our 2022 road work will start probably early this spring. We're looking end of January to have that out for bid. That work will start on 3rd Street from the intersection of Clark Street going north to Navarino Street. That will be tore up, a complete relay where there'll be new water put in, new sanitary sewer, new storm sewer, some curb, and a lot of sidewalk and a brand new road on those three and a half city blocks. That'll start the spring of 2022. So we're starting to get things ready to get that all ready to go. Hopefully spring will be here before we know it. The other big topic, the big takeaway is we're in winter mode now. All of our stuff has been harnessed up. We were out plowing snow a couple times here. Mother Nature's been pretty decent to us with the amount of snow that we had. But I ask the general public, please, where you're parking on the street at night, if you could please find places off the street to park. One, it'll get you away from having to pay a $25 parking ticket. Two is it makes it a lot easier for our staff that's out in the middle of the night plowing snow or the early mornings that we're out. Just makes it a lot easier. It's a lot easier to clean up. Makes it a lot easier after it freezes and hardens on the road. It's hard for us to get it off, and we have to go chase another plow truck, where if there's 2 cars parked on the road, if we have to chase another plow truck down there. If you could please find off-street parking is a huge help for us. With that being said, that's really all I have. Our next meeting will be down here at City Hall on January 18th at 8:30 a.m. Thank you very much.
The Algoma Public Library Board of Trustees met on December 20th. As far as programming, we continue to offer many different programs for all ages. We are putting together another community art project. Stop in beginning January 3rd to pick up your piece to make into your own piece of art. You can paint using acrylic, oil, watercolor, use collage, mixed media, 2D, 3D, or whatever you'd like on your puzzle piece. When we have them all collected, we will put them together and mount them on display for all to see. Kits are available by sign up beginning Monday, January 3rd, and pieces are due back February 7th. On January 8th at 11 a.m., we have a family coding program. This program is designed for families. This month's activities are a screen-free coding, meaning there will be no activities requiring a device. Come Learn Why Coding is great for problem solving, critical thinking, educational, and team building. Activities will be set up so that families can rotate through them. On January 10th, we have a Best for You 2022 kit for kids. This kit has some ideas to celebrate you and make 2022 the best year. Available while supplies last. Memory Cafe will be held on January 12th at 10 a.m. Memory Cafes welcome those experiencing early stage dementia, mild memory loss, or cognitive impairment, and family and friends of those affected. It's a great opportunity for lively discussions, information gathering, refreshments, and creative fun. We have a dementia specialist professional at hand to answer questions and an enormous wealth of experience among participants to be shared. We'd be delighted if you would join us. Algoma Memory Cafes are held from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Algoma Public Library every second Wednesday of the month. What's Brewing? This program will be held on Tuesday, January 18th at 10:30 a.m. If you love a good cup of coffee in the morning, come join us for conversation, stories, and maybe even a little trivia or some games. This program is held the third Tuesday of every month. Internet Security 101 will be held on Thursday, January 20th at 1 p.m. at the library. This is a basic internet security presentation that will cover the basics on emails, online shopping, and passwords. Monday, January 31st, stop in to pick up a Chinese New Year Good Fortune kit. This kit is for children and includes one lantern craft, a Chinese New Year activity book with stickers, and a 12 Days of Lunar New Year book. This program, or this kit, is while supplies last, and this program was made possible by the East Asia and Wisconsin Library Program Award that we received. Tuesday, February 1st, 3:15 to 4:15 p.m. Join us as we play bingo to bring in the Chinese New Year. We will have fun Chinese New Year prizes for our winners. This program was also made possible by the East Asia and Wisconsin Library Program Award. More information on these programs and more can be found on our website and Facebook page. Diana and Braylon have completed their last class for their certification. They have sent in their paperwork needed to the Department of Public Instruction to get their public librarian certification. Our next board meeting will be held on January 17th at 4 p.m.
I'm Jared Hines, City Administrator. The City Council met on Monday, December 6th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. After going through the usual order of business with the agenda and the bills and the committee reports, got right into new business. We discussed a potential moratorium on the enforcement of our political sign ordinance. This was coming from the Protection of Persons and Property Committee from their meeting in late November, where lady came and spoke about concerns she had about our political sign ordinance and its enforceability. So there's a pretty lengthy discussion on it and whether or not we wanted to institute a moratorium while we evaluated that. There was a motion made to do just that, but it died due to lack of a second. And then furthermore, the council ultimately decided to leave everything as is and directed myself to bring to the PPP at their next meeting recommendations based upon what we find with our own research and conversations with legal counsel. So any pertinent recommendations to that will be coming in the future. Passed Resolution 1092-2021, which is a 2021 budget amendment. This is something we do every year just to balance our 2021 budget actuals with our reconciling our estimated budget going into the year with our actuals by the end of the year. We also changed our fee schedule, Resolution 1093-2021. The only change to the fee schedule for the upcoming year was a change to our marina fuel costs, an increase of 5 cents per gallon on both cash or credit card transactions. So those prices will be going up. Or rather, I should say, it's a 5 cent increase based upon our costs. So the prices obviously fluctuate throughout the year, but we're staying 5 cents increase on the credit card and the cash purchases there. We had a lengthy discussion on the purchase of a pickup truck for the Public Works Department using savings in the Public Works budget. This was to replace a vehicle for the wastewater treatment plant, as we had some issues with that vehicle. And so ultimately a decision was made to purchase a vehicle from Algoma Motors in the amount not to exceed $35,250. So we'll be getting that truck in the near future. And then we had a resolution 1095-2021 approving the election officials for the 2022 through 2023 biannual cycle. So every 2 years we have to approve or appoint election officials to work our polls for each election within that 2-year span. And then went into the administrator's report. I provide an update on the redevelopment area number 2. At the time of the meeting, demolition work was about to begin on the property on 5th Street in the redevelopment block that the city owns. First started with asbestos abatement, and the actual demolition of the project or the building was followed soon thereafter. I talked about a grant application that we submitted. We were made aware of a tourism capital grant through the state very shortly before it was set to expire for application, so we threw together an application to basically put a concession stand as well as a new restroom facility and cleaning station, showering station on Crescent Beach, something that we identified as a definite need there. So we submitted for this grant in order to pay for that, and we are expecting results on that any day now within the next week or so. Talked a little bit about a fortunate situation we had at Perry Park with some vandalism. Fortunately, our public works crew is able to get that cleaned up. and have the park reopened. That vandalism had occurred right before the Thanksgiving holiday. And with the inclement weather, the Public Works Department was a little tied up, but once they were able to get to it, they were able to clean up the vandalism, so we did not need to repair or replace any part of the playground. So that was some good news in response to that. I provided a housing update. I had been having meetings with the county administrator on this. One of the priorities identified by the county and here in the city as well is the need for more working class or middle class housing. Something that people who are currently employed in any given job, but particularly like a blue collar job, for example, could reasonably afford. And so we were looking at some ideas and things we could do to explore that. And so that is going to be a priority for the upcoming year for both myself and the county administrator, as this is not just an issue here in Algoma, this is an issue identified by the county as well. And so we are going to be looking to any creative ways we can spur development of new middle class and working class housing. Provided a brief update on property taxes and the collection for those going through the end of the month of January. Any taxes we receive prior to the start of business on January 4th will be considered received in 2021 tax year. So we encourage anyone who wants to take advantage of that to come into the office and get those paid. And again, we are collecting those here at City Hall through the month of January. I also talked about we had posted for a recreation manager position. That position is still open as of the time of this recording. We are still receiving applications for that. It's a new position, reconstituted position within our public services department. This person would basically supervise and operate and manage our youth club and community center, as well as the marina, in addition to some other tasks. But we are accepting applications at this time for that and encourage anyone interested to apply. And then we just went over some updates for when the office would be closed. So the office will be closed at the time of this recording. Will still be closed the afternoon of Friday, December 31st, which is New Year's Eve. And then on Monday, January 3rd, in observance of New Year's Day. And then during the mayor's comments, he made note of the community band holding their Christmas concert at the elementary school next door. That was on December 15th. And then he nominated for appointment to the medical center board Betty Kroll, and that was approved. And the next meeting will be on Tuesday, January 4th at 6 p.m. And again, that date is due to the fact that the city offices will be closed on Monday the 3rd in observance of New Year's Day. So again, the next meeting will be on Tuesday, January 4th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. The Finance and Personnel Committee met on Tuesday, December 21st at 4:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. After going through the usual order of business, conference attendance, the bills, the minutes, we got right into new business, and we started off with a presentation and discussion from Paul Hacker of the ADRC, which is the Aging and Disability Resource Center. At the time of this recording, through the year of 2021, they rent out space at the Grandview Apartments, the housing authority, and they basically provide a community meal service for our aging and disabled population, as well as providing, for lack of a better term, like a Meals on Wheels service delivery a couple days a week. And they were looking to move their operation out of the Grandview Apartments and inquired about using Knudsen Hall at our youth club. And so they approached the city for that, outlined to staff, myself and our clerk and our public works director, how they would operate out of the facility and when they wanted to do it, and we made sure there was no scheduling conflict. And we believed this would be a good service to provide. And so we proposed approving a lease agreement with ADRC, and that will be going for formal approval at the City Council meeting on January 4th. So look for that discussion there. We had a discussion on a consideration of a memorandum of understanding to start providing student resource officer services to the school district here in Algoma. This would be for the spring semester only, as more or less a trial program. We discussed quite a bit during the budget process back in October for 2022, providing those services for the school district on a long-term basis, which would include hiring an additional police officer for our department. And providing these services to the school. So after some conversations in the meantime between city staff and district staff, we thought the most appropriate course of action would be to enter into a memorandum of understanding for the spring 2022 semester. So in other words, the last 4 or 5 months of the school year. Here, use that as sort of a test or a pilot program. And then enter into a long-term permanent agreement moving forward. And so that will be, the memorandum of understanding will be at the council meeting on the 4th, and then at a later time, we will be discussing the long-term agreement with the school district for that. We discussed a new police squad vehicle purchase. There was a lengthy discussion on that. Unfortunately, due to the time of the year, our options became rather limited with some of the make and model options there. And so ultimately, the preferred make and model, a Dodge Durango, was no longer on the table, but the council directed the police chief to do whatever he could to try and procure one if at all possible. Otherwise, to pursue a different vehicle, namely a comparable SUV, so in this case a Ford Explorer. So that will be going through the Finance Personnel Committee and the City Council at their next respective meetings. We had a very brief discussion on our community center rentals, as well as a gazebo donation update, but this discussion was very, very limited because we had just talked about it the previous night at the Parks Committee. And there wasn't a whole lot to make any policy decisions on it this evening, and so those were more or less tabled to future meetings, giving us more time to discuss and in depth what we're going to do there. As far as addressing our rental rates and our policies for the community center, and then also this the location of this gazebo and pavilion as that moves forward with from donation monies. We discussed very briefly the purchase of a pickup truck from Algoma Utilities. This would be going to the Parks Department, and so that was approved, and that is moving forward. We are purchasing a used truck from the Algoma Utilities and then selling one of our current pickup trucks through the Parks Department to replace it. This used vehicle from the utilities will be about 6 years newer, so less mileage, less wear and tear. We had a very brief discussion at the request of one of the aldermen to talk about surveillance on city-owned property and city-owned parks, and this was in response to the unfortunate vandalism incident we had prior to the Thanksgiving holiday. Ultimately, there was no real, not a clear direction on where to go from here because we didn't have a very good idea on the scope that we wanted to pursue, and thus we had no idea what the cost would be for this and what we wanted this to look like. And so this will be a task or a project taken on by the Protection of Persons and Property Committee. They will be continuing to discuss this at their future meetings. So this will be a topic that will come back up in the future. We discussed referendum language that we are going to be placing on the ballot for the April election. This is in regards to our public safety building project that'll be going to referendum in April. We provide the language that the state requires that we use. After a very lengthy discussion, it was very clear that the language was not very easy to understand, and so I was directed to pursue whatever options we had available to clarify it, and we have updated our language, and we're still looking at what we can do to make it even more clear and easy to understand. In the meantime, we'll be having our public information meetings beginning in the month of February, so that leading up to the April election, it will be as clear as possible what we're voting on, what the residents of Algoma will be voting on for that. We had a discussion on a renewal of a land lease for some agricultural land that the city owns in the town of Anapee. It's currently rented by Himes Hillcrest Dairy. I provided the proposed renewal terms from the current tenant. The council countered with their own offer and then directed me to offer that lease rate to the current tenant to renew. Otherwise, we'd be going out to bid. And so a final decision on that will be made at the January 4th council meeting. And then there was an appointment in the fire department of Riley Melville prior to us going into closed session, where the one thing that I can talk about now, because as we came out of closed session, that I was directed to continue to work with the property owners. We're working on a land swap with property owners adjacent to Evergreen Cemetery, and so I was directed to continue with that based upon the discussions we had earlier this year with that. So the next meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee will be on Tuesday, January 18th at 4:30 here in the council chambers. The Redevelopment Authority met on Tuesday, December 14th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. After the usual order of business, we went into old business, an update on redevelopment area number 2. At the time of this meeting, demolition had just been wrapped up on the parcel that the city owns, 521 5th Street. So if you drove by there at all, you'll notice that that house is no longer there, and there's a sign out there talking about the redevelopment and CDBG project. We just talked about next steps and working on an FAQ to get the word out there and clarify some misconceptions about the project out there. And so that's something that I'm working on right now. Is putting together an FAQ, and we'll update our website and do a social media post on that to kind of clarify what's going on, particularly as it relates to the relocation of the people living there and then what the next steps in the process are. And we also talked about beginning with developer solicitation. So after some discussion, we decided, or I should say the authority decided in the new year, following the New Year holiday, that we would start sending out letters to solicit interest from potential developers on this project to kind of just see where they're at before we send out a formal RFP for that. And so what these developers are for after we've acquired the land, the properties from the current property owners and residents there, and raise the properties, getting a developer on board to replace those with affordable housing on the designated areas there. So apartments, townhomes, duplexes, the whole 9 yards. So that will be happening shortly after the New Year holiday. And the next meeting of the RDA will be on Tuesday, January 11th at 6 p.m. So that we'll be having another update to discuss that as well. And so encourage anyone interested in that project to attend that meeting again Tuesday, January 11th at 6 p.m. The Parks and Recreation Committee met on Monday, December 20th at 6 p.m. down at the Youth Club. After the usual order of business with the agenda, the minutes, the bills, we went into old business where we had Kevin Nazi here talking about the construction of a fish sculpture. There's a particular party that would like to donate monies to put a fish sculpture, a fiberglass fish sculpture along the beach, kind of near the visitor center and the firefighter memorial. So there was a rather lengthy discussion on that, and the committee asked Mr. Nazi to come back with specifics on like to scale and a rendering of what this would look like, and so that they could continue to have that conversation and move that forward. We had a brief discussion on lawnmower replacement program. This had been a recurring item. However, per the Public Works Director, this was ultimately tabled until the following meeting, as he's still exploring some options there to potentially save the city some money. There was also discussion on a consideration of a UTV purchase to replace our current UTV. At the last meeting in November, this had been brought up, and they directed the Public Works Director to look at additional options. He did that, presented his recommendations there on his recommended UTV to purchase for 2022. Then we got into new business, and we talked about swing purchase, a family looking to donate some monies and purchase a swing to be located in memory of a relative to be located on city property. Ultimately, that was tabled after some discussion, tabled to the following meeting to discuss it further. At this meeting, we first talked about the rental agreement proposed by ADRC, the Aging and Disability Resource Center, looking to use Knutson Hall for a meal program, both for physically gathering there for a community meal for the aging and disabled community, as well as their meal delivery service and what that would look like and the service that they would provide the community. And that ultimately went to Finance and Personnel, and then we'll be going to the January 4th council meeting. There's a very brief discussion on the rentals of the community building. And this is something that staff is going to be looking more into, and we'll be working with the Parks Committee on this moving forward. Just some inconsistencies with the rates that were charged or are charged to some of the renters, and we're trying to identify why that was. And as we're going through the staff transition with this, we were kind of more or less posing to the committee if they what insights they could provide on that, if that was a decision they made. And if so, what was leading that decision? And so we're going to continue to work with them on that. So there might be some changes in the future to our rentals, to the rental rates that we charge. We talked very briefly about the purchase of a pickup truck for the Parks Department from Algoma Utilities, and then that was ultimately discussed the following night at Finance and Personnel and approved for purchase. So that is moving forward. It's basically a six model years newer pickup truck than the current one, and then we will turn around and sell the older one. We had a very lengthy discussion on gazebo going in, again using some donated monies, but there was some confusion with the committee over where those monies were coming from, and so we were tasked as staff to look more into this and identify that. And so we've done that since then. And then we had a very brief discussion on surveillance within the parks and other community-owned properties. This was in response to that there would be on the agenda for the Finance Personnel the following night on Tuesday the 21st, a conversation of the same topic. So we had brought this to the Parks Committee to solicit some sort of input from them that we could then pass on to Finance and Personnel and the Council. But there were so many unknowns with the scope and the scale of what we were looking to do here that they didn't feel comfortable making such a recommendation. And so this will likely come back to the Parks in a few meetings, the Parks Committee in a few meetings. The decision of the Finance and Personnel Committee was to delegate this to the Protection of Persons and Property Committee, so they will be the ones leading the charge on this with policy recommendations and ideas run past the Parks Committee and Finance and Personnel and Council at a later time. So the next meeting date will be the third Monday in January, which I believe is January 17th, and that'll be at 6 p.m. down at the Youth Club.